Well, after going 9-0 to start the season, the New York Liberty has fallen back to earth, losing 3 of their last 4. Geoff Magliocchetti joins me now to talk about those matchups, including a loss against the Indiana Fever featuring Caitlin Clark. Geoff, great to see you as always.
Mike, thank you for having me on. You guys do great work. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Always our pleasure to have you on. So, Geoff, the Liberty's first loss came against the Indiana Fever, and as much star power as they have, the Fever had a pretty pedestrian record heading into the game against New York. So, where did it go wrong for the Liberty?
That record was somewhat deceiving considering Caitlin Clark had been missing some time due to injuries. Indiana was severely shorthanded in the early stages of this season, losing Caitlin Clark, losing Sophie Cunningham, who's proven to be a force in more ways than one, and losing head coach Stephanie White to personal reasons. But at the same time, New York is going through a little bit of that right now as well. Against the Fever, it was a tough break for New York because, they fell victim to Caitlin Clark out there. They lost their sense of spacing in that game. It's generally not a good idea to give Caitlin Clark any form of space, but when you afford her that space at the top of the key, things are just not going to go well for you. And I think the more troubling part of the more troubling segment has been the past 2 games, or at least the game against Phoenix on, I believe it was Thursday night. Head coach Sandy Brondella was not pleased with the team's effort, and she was not pleased with the way the team responded to its first stretch of facing opponents with consecutive opponents with winning records. They faced the Atlanta Dream on Tuesday night, and then they faced Phoenix on Thursday. Atlanta and Phoenix are pursuing New York and Minnesota for the right to usurp them from the WNBA final spots. And, New York fell behind by 17 to Atlanta. And then Coach Brondella was not pleased with the effort against Atlanta. She was a little more pleased with what they were able to do on Sunday night, which saw a severely shorthanded Liberty group keep pace with the Seattle Storm, another team off to a solid start. Seattle, took that game last night 89-79, but New York did a solid job keeping pace with them, working through several injuries, which now include Sabrina Ionescu, who missed yesterday's game with what Coach Brondell described as a quote, kink in the neck. She should be ready for Wednesday night's game in Golden State, but New York has severely missed that sense of spacing. They've missed that length with both Jonquel Jones and Leonie Fibishow. Jonquel Jones, of course, is out for the next 4 to 6 weeks at least, so it should be interesting to see how the Liberty overcome this stretch. Last year's success, last year's championship run, was built off, relative luck in the health department, but it was also built off the success of Death Stars. It was great to see, the headliners rise to the occasion in Game 5 of the WNBA Finals last fall, but was more or less fully defined by Death Stars rising to the occasion, including Leonie Fibish, including Niara Sabali. So this should be an interesting stretch from the Liberty and something we're going to end a period where we're going to learn a lot about this group. I think they were not pleased with the way things transpired against the Mercury. That's the game where Jonquel Jones, re-injured her right ankle, and they were not pleased with the way they came out. They were not pleased with the way things came forward. But against Seattle, they were more pleased with the way they were physical in that game. They were pleased with their sense of resilience, and they were pleased with the way they can work with this group, especially if there are longer term injuries to deal with. Leonie Fibish, of course, is competing in in the Eurobasket women's competition, representing Germany. So she should be back by the end, but she should be back by the start of next month. Eurobasket runs through June 29th.
And Geoff, I want to move over to the New York Knicks now and get your take on a big move they made, parting ways with head coach Tom Thibodeau, their most effective coach in 25 years, really, since Jeff Van Gundy. And I also want to hear your thoughts on some other moves they should or should not make this offseason to keep that positive momentum going into next season.
What's an interesting thing about the Knicks right now is that, there is a void where there almost didn't have to be. But what's interesting about the Thibodeau situation, like, look, I think it's fair for the Knicks to say, like, look, we've gone as far as you can take us. We've done what we could. We've gone in the right direction. Thank you for that, but this was our ceiling at this point in time. But what should not be done? The Thibodeau era can be analyzed, it can be criticized. Its ending should not be celebrated because Thibodeau got this team back on the right track. And for fans and observers to kind of dilute his progress, dilute what was created here is not right. Thibodeau got this team on the right track. It was a volatile mix of there were so many ways this could have gone wrong. What if Jalen Brunson didn't live up to his 9-figure contract? What if they came to instantly regret the Karl Anthony Towns trade? Instead, it's gotten the Knicks into what had been for a quarter century unprecedented territory. And the Knicks are now in a very, very, very interesting spot. The Eastern Conference is in a state of relative flux. There are several injuries across the landscape. We saw Jason Tatum get hurt against the Knicks in the Eastern Conference semifinals. Last night, we saw the unfortunate case of Tyrese Halliburton, suffer that painful Achilles injury. And of course, we wish everyone the best in those situations. These are tough situations to deal with. So we obviously wish the best. It gives the Knicks a unique opportunity. The East now is wide open in the sense that the Knicks could come back and they could be relatively strong. They have a year of chemistry to work together. We saw what happened in New York in Brooklyn, as a matter of fact, with the New York Liberty. Liberty management really seemed to buy into the idea that, a year of working together with such a high profile group, a group that include downright historical talents coming in Jonquil Jones, in Breanna Stewart, they felt a year working together was truly the secret to taking that last step to a championship, and it paid off in their favor. That could be the same for the Knicks. It's really not in the New York nature to kind of work with. It's not in New York nature to stay quiet, more or less. They want to make a big move. They want to go out there and they want to make a big splash out there. But there is such a unique opportunity here. One manageable goal I've had for the Knicks over the past year, maybe year plus. I know divisions really don't mean much in the NBA anymore, but a good goal for them would have been to win the Atlantic Division. And, that would give them a chance to stay atop the Eastern Conference for a change, not worry about, home court advantage or facing an upstart team in the sixth seed. Last season, they were able to do that pretty well, earning the second seed. So, what the Knicks need more right now is they need to work on some depth right now. I would personally try to foster some of this young talent that they got rolling in there. Tyler Kolek, Errol Huck-Porty, they turned out to be second round gems. And with Thibodeau gone, there is now an opportunity to foster this young talent. For all his success, Thibodeau really didn't, trust any of the rookies much of a sense. Again, to bring up the Pacers in the NBA Finals, we saw Obi Toppin. Of course, Obi Toppin was somewhat sidelined by Julius Randle's breakout, but he never found a role in New York. And while it feels like he'll never live up to his top 10 billing, he is assured a decently long NBA career for the way he has risen as a Death Star in Indianapolis. So there's a unique opportunity for the Knicks at this point. Boston and Indiana will be dealing with major long-term injuries to their franchise faces. Milwaukee, who knows what to think of them? Cleveland, I think we saw the holes poked through the Cavaliers this time around once they made it to the second round and lost to the Pacers. Of course, there were some injuries to deal with, but there is a unique opportunity for the Knicks. They have to worry about basically they could make some big moves, but whether they should is another question entirely.
Well, the season will be here before we know it. Geoff Magliocchetti, thanks. Thanks as always so much.
Mike, appreciate your time and insight. Keep up the good work, sir. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Well, that's it for this week's show. I'll see you next Monday. For all New Jersey sports and news, head over to ONNJ.com.